Welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to explore some really fascinating connections between ancient civilizations and religions.
Oh, this will be good.
Yeah, I think so. We're going to be looking at excerpts from Godfrey Higgins' Anacalypsis, Book 1,
Okay.
which is this incredible exploration of ancient mythologies and mysteries. And get this, there's actually evidence suggesting that a really powerful black nation existed in Asia, like way before our known history.
Wow.
And I think you might be surprised by some of the unexpected connections between ancient religions.
Yeah, that's right. You know, what's so captivating about Higgins's work is that he really dares to challenge conventional historical narratives. And he delves into, like, the very foundations of human thought. He makes us think about, how our ancestors perceived the world and how those perceptions shape their societies.
Yeah, and so Higgins kicks things off by talking about the age of the world. He was obviously influenced by Georges Cuvier, who argued that the Earth is, like, far older than we previously thought.
Right.
So this opens up some really interesting possibilities, like could there have been civilizations that existed long before the ones we typically learn about?
Absolutely. And that leads us to the mystery of the flood.
Right.
Have you ever wondered why so many cultures across the globe have these strikingly similar flood stories?
Mm-hmm.
So Higgins, he doesn't really get bogged down in the debate about whether the flood was literal or not.
Right.
Instead, he uses these myths to kind of explore the possibility of multiple flood survivors
Oh, okay.
in different parts of the world, suggesting that the history, we know might be incomplete.
Oh, so multiple groups of people surviving in different pockets of the world.
Exactly.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it gets even more interesting because Higgins proposes this really bold theory about ancient religions.
Okay.
He argues that ultimately all ancient gods, they represent the sun or its various attributes.
Right. And this concept might seem kind of unusual at first, but, Higgins isn't alone in his thinking. He cites ancient writers like Diodorus Siculus, a Greek historian, who wrote extensively about ancient cultures and their beliefs. And Diodorus himself pointed to the sun's significance as a divine figure in many societies.
It's amazing to think that the sun, this incredible source of life and power, could have held like such profound meaning for people in the ancient world.
Absolutely.
But Higgins points out that, this wasn't just about, simple sun worshiping.
Right.
He argues that the sun often symbolized a higher creative power or force.
Yes.
Suggesting that ancient people were grappling with like complex philosophical ideas.
Precisely. The sun, as the most prominent celestial body, became a natural focal point for religious and philosophical contemplation.
Yeah.
It represented a force beyond human comprehension, a source of both life and destruction, so inspiring awe and wonder. And
speaking of awe and wonder, this is where Higgins' theory takes a fascinating turn.
Okay.
He brings up Sir William Jones, a scholar who proposed the existence of a great nation of blacks ruling Asia long before recorded history. And Higgins dives into this idea, focusing on the ancient Cushites or Ethiopians.
Right.
He suggests a significant and powerful black presence in Asia, one that predates much of what we consider established history.
Yeah, and what makes this theory so compelling is the evidence that Higgins presents. He points to black Buddhist statues found throughout Asia, statues that are remarkably old, suggesting this long-standing and widespread influence of this black nation.
Wow.
It really challenges the traditional narrative of where and how civilizations develop.
It's like we're missing entire chapters of the story.
Yeah.
Right, and the evidence doesn't stop there. Higgins also mentions the shepherd kings of Egypt, who ruled before the Israelites.
Right.
These kings, believed to have originated from the East, possibly India, might be connected to this powerful black nation as well.
Yeah, and, if this black nation truly existed and exerted such widespread influence, it significantly alters our understanding of ancient history and chronology.
Right.
Imagine the implications for our understanding of cultural exchange and the spread of knowledge in the ancient world.
Yeah, it's almost like we've been looking at history through this like really limited lens.
Right.
And Higgins is encouraging us to like widen our perspective.
Exactly.
He even highlights the similarities between ancient Egyptian and Indian architecture and religious symbols, pointing to a potential exchange of ideas and beliefs between these cultures.
Yeah, one of the most striking pieces of evidence Higgins mentions is the experience of modern Hindu soldiers who upon arriving in Egypt recognized their god Krishna in the ancient temples.
Wow.
That's a powerful anecdote suggesting a historical connection that runs deeper than we typically acknowledge.
So we've got flood survivors, a potentially overlooked black empire, and the sun as a symbol of divine power.
Right.
Now let's add another layer to this intricate tapestry. Higgins explores the concept of the Trinity.
Okay.
3 aspects of a single divine being, a concept he believed was common to many ancient cultures.
And this idea of a Trinity wasn't arbitrary. Higgins suggests it emerged from observing nature's inherent cycles. Creation, preservation, and destruction.
Right.
So these fundamental processes witnessed everywhere in the natural world could have inspired early conceptions of a multifaceted divine power.
That makes so much sense. You know, the natural world is full of cycles and processes that repeat themselves.
Right.
It's easy to see how ancient thinkers could have drawn inspiration from these patterns and applied them to their understanding of the divine.
And this brings us to another intriguing concept, the androgynous nature of many ancient deities, representing a unified, all-encompassing creative power. Higgins highlights the sophisticated way ancient people contemplated the nature of God, incorporating concepts like the eternity of matter,
right,
and the cyclical creation and destruction of worlds. It really challenges the modern tendency to view ancient religions as simplistic or primitive.
So it's not just about, a bunch of gods on a mountaintop.
Right.
Right. Ancient people were grappling with profound philosophical and theological questions.
Absolutely.
Just as we do today.
Exactly. Yeah, it really does make you, rethink the way we view progress, right? We tend to just assume that we're so much more advanced in our thinking, but these ancient civilizations were already grappling with some incredibly complex and nuanced ideas.
Yeah, it's definitely humbling. And one of the big questions that Higgins tackles is this whole problem of evil. How could a benevolent God allow suffering and bad things to happen in the world? It's a question that's puzzled philosophers and theologians for centuries.
Yeah.
And it seems like the ancients had some really thought-provoking answers.
Absolutely. One of the solutions that emerges in many ancient belief systems is this concept of a future state.
Right.
Sort of this cosmic balancing act where good actions are rewarded and evil is punished. And this idea, likely arose as a way to make sense of the injustices and seeming randomness of life.
So basically, if things don't seem fair in this life, there's a sense that things will eventually be set right in the afterlife.
Right.
It provides a sense of hope and a belief that ultimately justice will prevail.
Right. And remember that idea of regeneration and cycles we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
This connects to another fascinating concept that pops up in many ancient cultures.
Okay.
Reincarnation, or the transmigration of souls.
All right.
If you believe that everything in nature is constantly being reborn and transformed, it's not a huge leap to apply that same idea to human souls.
So instead of just one life, the soul goes through a series of lives experiencing different challenges and lessons along the way.
Exactly. This concept known as metempsychosis was a central belief in cultures like ancient India and Greece. And it suggests that the soul kind of embarks on this journey of purification through multiple lifetimes, eventually achieving a state of unity with a divine source. It's like a cosmic school.
Oh, wow.
With each life offering new opportunities for growth and learning.
That's a really interesting way to think about it.
Yeah.
And it gets even more mind-blowing when you consider that Higgins, along with many ancient philosophers, believed that the world itself goes through cycles of creation and destruction.
Right.
It's not just a linear progression of time, but a grand repeating cosmic drama.
Right. And this cyclical view of existence offers another way to understand the presence of evil in a world created by a benevolent force.
Right.
Suffering and imperfection become part of a larger cosmic process.
Okay.
Necessary stages in the ongoing evolution of the universe.
So instead of seeing evil as this permanent flaw in creation, it's more like a phase, part of the natural ebb and flow.
Precisely. It's like the changing seasons with periods of growth and decay, light and darkness, constantly interacting and creating balance. And this idea also ties back to those ancient flood myths we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Those myths could be symbolic representations of these cycles of destruction and renewal that occur on a cosmic scale.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about how these ancient cultures viewed time and existence. It definitely challenges our modern linear perspective.
Yep. It certainly does. And speaking of challenges, Higgins highlights another concept that might surprise you. He points out that many ancient thinkers believed that matter itself is eternal.
Okay.
Not created from nothing. And this idea expressed in the phrase ex nihilo nihil fit nothing comes from nothing was a cornerstone of many ancient philosophies.
So the building blocks of the universe have always existed in some form, just constantly changing and rearranging.
That's the idea. It suggests that matter is fundamentally indestructible, even if it takes on, different forms throughout these cosmic cycles of creation and destruction.
It's like the ultimate recycling program.
Right.
But Higgins points out something really interesting about how we view this idea today. Mm-hmm. We often think of the concept of eternal matter as primitive,
right,
while celebrating the modern idea of creation from nothing.
Yeah.
But he questions whether our modern view is truly more advanced, especially since we don't have any concrete evidence that something can actually be created from nothing.
It's a very thought-provoking point. And Higgins isn't suggesting that we should just simply accept the ancient view as fact, but he's encouraging us to examine our assumptions about what constitutes progress in our understanding of the universe.
Right.
He wants us to be open to the possibility that ancient wisdom might hold insights that we've overlooked or dismissed.
Yeah, it's a good reminder to stay humble and curious.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always more to learn. And sometimes the most surprising discoveries come from revisiting old ideas with fresh eyes.
Absolutely. And what's even more fascinating is that Higgins sees a convergence between some of these ancient ideas and modern scientific discoveries.
Really? What kind of discovery?
He specifically references the work of Pierre-Simon Laplace,
okay,
a brilliant 18th century mathematician and astronomer.
Yeah.
And Laplace showed that the seemingly irregular motions of celestial bodies are actually part of these immensely long but ultimately cyclical patterns.
Wow.
So this suggests that the universe isn't headed towards this inevitable chaos, as some had feared, but rather that it's engaged in this grand rhythmic dance of expansion and contraction, creation and destruction, playing out over timescales that are beyond human comprehension.
So this modern scientist Laplace is essentially confirming what ancient philosophers had already intuited, that the universe operates in cycles, not just a straightforward linear progression.
Exactly. It's a remarkable example of how ancient wisdom and modern science can sometimes complement and enrich each other. It highlights the fact that our understanding of the universe is a continuous journey, and we can learn from both the past and the present as we strive to unravel its mysteries.
Wow, this is all incredibly mind-blowing stuff. We've got lost empires, black Buddhas, the sun as a central divine figure, and a universe engaged in this eternal dance of creation and destruction.
Yeah.
But what does it all mean for us here in the 21st century?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think Higgins wants us to grapple with that question. He wants us to explore how these ideas challenge our understanding of history, religion, and even the nature of reality itself.
It definitely makes you think about things from a whole new perspective.
One of the most provocative implications of Higgins' work is the idea that our understanding of ancient civilizations might be far too Eurocentric.
Right.
He suggests that this black nation, potentially originating in India, played a much more significant role in shaping global cultures than we typically acknowledge.
It's like we've been telling the story of civilization from a very limited viewpoint.
Yeah.
And Higgins is urging us to broaden our horizons.
Exactly. Think about it. If this black nation spread its influence across Asia, the Middle East, and even into Africa, it could rewrite our understanding of the cradles of civilization. It suggests a much more interconnected and complex history than the one we're often taught.
And if these early civilizations were more interconnected and influenced by non-European cultures than we thought, it changes our entire understanding of how knowledge and culture spread in the ancient world.
It really does. And that's what makes Higgins' work so valuable. He's pushing us to question the assumptions that underlie our understanding of history, and to consider the possibility that the story of human civilization is far richer and more diverse than we've been led to believe.
Yeah, it's a call to rethink our place in the grand scheme of things, not just in terms of history, but in relation to the universe itself.
Right. It's a reminder that the past is full of mysteries, and that the more we learn, the more we realize how much we still don't know.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about like how much our perspective on history can change when we start considering these alternative narratives. It's like we're piecing together this giant jigsaw puzzle, and Higgins is giving us some, missing pieces that completely change the picture.
That's a great analogy. And one of the things I find so inspiring about Higgins's work is that he doesn't just present these theories as like, cold hard facts.
Right. Yeah.
He's genuinely excited about these ideas, and his enthusiasm is contagious.
I agree. It's clear that he's like deeply passionate about uncovering these hidden truths and challenging conventional thinking. It makes you want to like dive into the research yourself and see what other connections you can find.
Absolutely. And speaking of diving deeper, I think it's important to acknowledge that Higgins was, writing in the 19th century.
Right.
So his work is a product of his time. And there are some aspects of his thinking that might seem, outdated or even problematic to modern readers.
That's a good point. It's important to approach any historical text with a critical eye.
Yeah.
And to be aware of the author's biases and the context in which they were writing.
Exactly. But even though Higgins' work might not be perfect, it's still incredibly valuable. He was asking important questions and challenging us to think differently about the past. And that's something we should always strive to do, no matter what we're studying or exploring.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Anacalypsis, what would you say is like the key takeaway for our listener?
Yeah.
What should they be pondering as they go about their day?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is the power of questioning assumptions.
Right.
Don't take anything for granted, whether it's a historical narrative, a religious belief, or even a scientific theory. There's always more to learn, more to discover, and the most groundbreaking insights often come from challenging the status quo.
Yeah, it's about having that sense of curiosity and wonder that Higgins clearly possessed.
Precisely. And it's about being open to the possibility that the story of human history is far more complex and interconnected than we might initially imagine.
So to our listener out there, if Higgins' theories have sparked your interest, I encourage you to explore further, dig into the source material, do your own research, and see what connections you can uncover.
And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to unearth the next mind-blowing historical revelation.
That's a great thought. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Godfrey Higgins's Anacalypsis. It's been a fascinating journey through ancient mysteries and alternative perspectives on history.
I've thoroughly enjoyed our exploration. It's always a pleasure to delve into these thought-provoking topics.
Me too. And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, the world is full of wonders, and the past is never truly settled. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep an open mind. Until next time, happy diving.